Ask any rider over 50 about their favorite bike, and they'll take you back in time. Back when freedom came on two wheels and paychecks went straight to the garage. Today, we're sharing real stories from veteran riders about the motorcycles from the 70s, 80s, and 90s that changed everything. Number 1, 1971. Moto Guzzi Phoebe 7. Special before the adventure craze, before the V-twin explosion, there was the Moto Guzzi Phoebe 7 Special. Launched in 1971, this Italian masterpiece took that transverse V-twin layout and made it iconic. The 757 cubic centimeter engine, shaft drive, and bulletproof simplicity made it the perfect mix of touring comfort and mechanical muscle, but the real magic was its soul. Riders still remember that signature Guzzi rumble, torque that rocked the frame at idle and settled into a mellow thrum once rolling. It wasn't the fastest or flashiest, but it never quit. Whether you were cruising alpine passes or rolling into a European cafe, the V7 made you feel like part of something bigger. It was beautiful, functional, and endlessly reliable. The V7 Special wasn't a bike for posers, it was for purists. And for many riders, it was their first introduction to just how good a touring V-twin could feel. The V7 was for purists. Now let's talk about a bike that made everyone rethink what a motorcycle could be. Number 2, 1972 Honda CB 7504. In the early 70s, motorcycling was raw, loud, and unpredictable. Then came the Honda CB 7504, and the world changed. Riders still remember the first time they twisted the throttle on this inline-4 masterpiece. It didn't just roar, it sang. With 67 horsepower, a top speed of 125 miles per hour, and a front disc brake, a first on a production motorcycle, the CB 750 made power, reliability, and innovation available to the everyday rider. No more oil leaks, no more wrenching every weekend just to stay on the road. It wasn't just a bike, it was a statement. You could ride it across the country or tear through the streets, and it wouldn't blink. Ask any rider who lived through the 70s, and they'll tell you, the CB 750 was the bike that brought Japan to the world stage and gave birth to the superbike era. For many, it was the first real motorcycle they ever trusted. For others, it was the one that made them fall in love with riding forever. From Japan's revolution to Britain's last stand, this next bike held the flag high even before the tide turned. Number 3, 1973 Norton Commando 850. If you were riding in Britain during the early 70s, the Norton Commando 850 was your dream machine. It had that classic British twin rumble, but with smoother vibes thanks to Norton's innovative ice-elastic engine mounting system that shook up the competition, but not your spine. The 828 cubic centimeter parallel twin put down 60 horsepower, which might not sound like much now, but in its day, it was a rocket. Top speed? Around 115 miles per hour. But it wasn't just fast, it handled. The Commando 850 loved back roads and swept through corners with elegance that surprised riders used to older Brit bikes. This was the last great hurrah before the Japanese wave took over. And for many riders, the Commando wasn't just a bike, it was a symbol of what British motorcycling could have been. It lives on in garages, stories, and Sunday morning rides from aging riders who still remember how it felt to own the road. If you're loving this ride through history, then hit that like button and drop your favorite vintage bike in the comments section below. Number 4, 1974 Kawasaki Z1900. If the Honda CB 750 was the revolution, the Kawasaki Z1 was the rebellion. Launched in '73, this bike was raw, fast, and louder than life. With a 903 cubic centimeter inline-4 making 82 horsepower and hitting 130 miles per hour, it shattered expectations. But it wasn't just fast, it was bulletproof. Riders still remember the Z1 for its 4-pipe growl and gold pinstripes that turned gas stations into photo ops. It wasn't just admired, it was feared. This was the bike for the wild ones, drag races on Fridays, highway duels on Sundays. Durable, dangerous, and always daring. Even now, veterans speak of the Z1 with that same wild grin. It didn't just raise a generation, it unleashed one. And just when Honda set the bar, Kawasaki decided to kick the door in. The Z1 screamed pure rebellion, but this next bike whispered luxury with a soft and smooth punch. Number 5, 1975 BMW R90S. Where some bikes roared, the BMW R90S purred. But make no mistake, this bike had claws. Released in 1973 and refined by 75, its 898 cubic centimeter boxer twin hit 124 miles per hour and did 0 to 60 in just over 4 seconds. But the R90S wasn't about stats, it was about soul. The Daytona orange paint, bikini fairing, and shaft drive smoothness made it iconic. It wasn't a bike you raced, it was a bike you arrived on. Long-distance riders remember its saddle comfort, balanced handling, and the soothing boxer hum. It didn't beg for attention, it commanded quiet respect. Even today, when one glides by, you don't just hear the engine, you feel the era. When style met engineering, and touring became truly cool. Touring refinement? Very cool. But now let's meet the wild child with a death wish. Number 6, 1975. Kawasaki KH500 Mach 3. If you loved danger in the 70s, the KH500 was your spirit animal. Known as the Mach 3 in its earlier years, this bike was wild, unpredictable, and borderline insane. It came with a 498 cubic centimeter two-stroke triple that sounded like a chainsaw on nitrous and hit like a freight train at 5,000 RPM. It didn't just go fast, it launched. With 60 horsepower in a featherweight frame, it had power-to-weight numbers that beat most cars. But there was a catch. The handling wasn't exactly planted. It was more like aim and pray. Brakes, let's just say they were optional in spirit. But that was the charm. Riders didn't buy the KH500 to be careful, they bought it to be legends. It smoked tires, outran cops, and made heroes out of fools. Ask anyone who rode one. They'll either tell you it was the best bike they ever owned or the one that tried to kill them. Either way, they'll say it with a smile. Want more stories about bikes that tried to kill their riders and got loved anyway? Then subscribe now and don't miss what's next. Number 7, 1977 Yamaha XS650, simple, rugged, timeless. The Yamaha XS650 was built like a hammer and hit just as hard. With a 654 cubic centimeter parallel twin engine, this bike wasn't about flash. It was about getting you there, no matter what. Riders loved it for its raw feel and the mechanical honesty of its design. It kicked, it rumbled, and it asked for just one thing: ride it hard. The XS650 became a favorite for flat trackers, bobber builders, and backyard mechanics alike. It was cheap, modifiable, and nearly indestructible. People rode these things coast to coast with nothing but a tool roll and a spare plug. The XS650 earned its spot in the heart of riders who believed motorcycles should be tough, loud, and personal. Ask any 70s rider about their first real road trip, and there's a good chance it started on an XS. It may not have looked the part, but this next oddball became a legend in its own right. Number 8, 1978 Honda CX500. When Honda rolled out the CX500 in '78, riders didn't know what to think. A liquid-cooled, shaft-driven V-twin with a sideways engine? It looked weird, sounded different, and defied every convention. But give it a few years, and it earned a nickname, the Cockroach, because it just wouldn't die. The 500cc engine made around 50 horsepower and had a reputation for running forever with minimal fuss. Riders who commuted through snow, rain, or rough roads swore by it. It was affordable, low maintenance, and weirdly futuristic for its time. The CX500 became a sleeper favorite, especially among couriers and long-haul commuters. Later, it even found a second life as a cafe racer platform. Ask anyone who's owned one, they'll probably still have it, somewhere, running flawlessly. Now that Honda proved weird could work, Suzuki rolled in with a heavyweight champ. Number 9, 1979 Suzuki GS 1000. By the late 70s, Suzuki had something to prove, and they did it with the GS 1000. Its 997 cubic centimeter inline-4 pushed 90 horsepower, but what set it apart was refinement. It cornered with confidence, cruised highways with ease, and handled better than anything its size should have. It wasn't just fast, it was composed. That balance made it a favorite for endurance racers and long-haul riders alike. This was the bike you rode daily. It didn't overheat, it didn't complain, it just ran. Many GS 1000s passed 100,000 miles without flinching. For riders wanting muscle and manners in the same machine, the GS 1000 delivered. Fast, reliable, and loyal. It was a true partner for the road. Number 10. 1980 Suzuki GS 850G. This was the bike that never flinched. The Suzuki GS 850G didn't try to be flashy. It just showed up, did the work, and begged for more. With an 843 cubic centimeter air-cooled inline-4 and shaft drive, this bike was a favorite of serious tourers who wanted reliability over racing stripes. With around 75 horsepower, it wasn't slow, but what riders loved most was the smoothness. It cruised highways without a hiccup and soaked up bad roads like a sponge. The GS 850G was built for distance, and it showed. It had a large tank, a comfortable seat, and a bulletproof engine that could easily cross the 100,000-mile mark. You won't see many in showrooms, but ask any grizzled rider with high-mileage stories, and chances are the GS 850G played a part. It was the quiet workhorse that earned its glory mile by mile. Now that you've seen dependable, meet the bike that made luxury feel bulletproof. Number 11, 1981, Honda GL 1100 Goldwing Interstate. By the early 80s, Honda wasn't just building bikes. They were building living rooms on wheels. The GL 1100 Goldwing Interstate wasn't fast, but it didn't need to be. It was built for distance and redefined touring. Its 1,085 cubic centimeter flat-4 engine and smooth shaft drive made highway miles effortless. Riders still recall crossing states with the motor humming, FM radio playing, and enough luggage to live on the road. The interstate trim brought full fairings, saddlebags, and unheard-of luxury. Best of all, it didn't quit. Many GL 1100s racked up 200,000-plus miles with ease. If someone toured America in the 80s, odds are they did it on a Goldwing. More than a motorcycle, it was freedom on two wheels. After comfort came chaos again, Italian style. Number 12, 1981. Laverda Jota 120 Exotic. Brutal. Loud. The Laverda Jota 120 was Italy's Thunderbolt. Its 981 cubic centimeter triple-cylinder engine made around 90 horsepower and delivered it with a rawness that modern bikes simply can't replicate. But what really stood out? The sound. That triple growl was pure mechanical opera. The Jota was fast, heavy, and needed a rider who respected its quirks. The 120-degree crank gave it smoother power delivery than earlier models, but it was still a beast to tame. Tall gearing, stiff suspension, and a heavy clutch meant this bike didn't coddle beginners. It challenged them. But that's why it's legendary. For those who mastered it, the Jota 120 wasn't just a bike, it was a badge of honor. It said, "I ride something with soul, and I earned it." Now we'd love to hear from you. Which bike so far would you ride coast to coast? Tell us below and stick around. Some serious sleepers are coming. We're going from fiery Italian to cool Japanese with serious cruiser vibes. Number 13, 1982, Yamaha Virago 920. Yamaha didn't just make motorcycles in the 80s. They made statements. And the Virago 920 was one of the loudest. With a V-twin engine and low-slung cruiser stance, the Virago gave Japanese reliability to riders who loved American style. It came with shaft drive, electric start, and just enough torque from its 920cc engine to make every ride fun. It sounded good too, deep, throaty, and smooth. For many, it was the first Japanese cruiser that didn't feel like a knockoff. Affordable, stylish, and reliable, the Virago 920 was the anti-Harley. And for a lot of riders, it was their first real taste of freedom, and they never looked back. Next up, a single-cylinder fighter that became a cult hero in 1982. Number 14, 1982, Honda FT 500 Ascot. In a sea of plastic fairings and inline fours, the Honda FT 500 Ascot stood out by keeping things simple. A single-cylinder thumper with a 5-speed gearbox, it wasn't built for speed, it was built for grit. With a 498 cubic centimeter air-cooled engine, making around 33 horsepower, it wasn't going to win any races, but it earned its stripes on back roads and city streets. The FT 500 was light, nimble, and dead simple to maintain. Riders loved its upright posture, flickable chassis, and reliability that bordered on boring in the best way. It became a cult favorite among riders who valued control, torque, and a connection to the road over flashy numbers. Years later, it still pops up in flat track builds, budget customs, and as a first bike recommendation by old-timers who know it'll never let you down. The FT 500 Ascot wasn't glamorous, but it was honest, and that's why people loved it. Before the 80s ended, Kawasaki changed the game again, this time for speed freaks. Number 15, 1983, Kawasaki GP 900R. The 80s weren't just neon and synth, they were speed, and no bike captured that better than the Kawasaki GPZ 900R. Dropping in 83, it was the world's first 16-valve, liquid-cooled inline-four sport bike, and it hit like a thunderclap. With 115 horsepower and a top speed over 150 miles per hour, it crushed the competition. But beyond speed, it delivered precision. It wasn't just fast, it handled. Smooth, sharp, and ahead of its time. Tom Cruise rode one in Top Gun, but real riders knew it wasn't just a movie prop. It was a revolution. Lightweight, powerful, and dependable. It didn't just perform, it inspired. Ask any veteran rider what started it all, and they'll point to the GPZ. It launched the modern sport bike era. The GPZ 900R closed one era, and Harley was ready to open another. Number 16, 1984, Harley-Davidson FXRD Sport Glide. The 80s weren't kind to Harley, but bikes like the FXRD Sport Glide kept the flame alive. This bike took the raw attitude of a Harley and dressed it in touring clothes, fairing, saddlebags, and a seat built for real distance. Its 1,340 cubic centimeter Evolution engine was the savior Harley desperately needed. Smooth, oil-tight, and far more reliable than the shovelheads of the 70s, it brought back old fans and earned new ones. It was heavy, it was loud, and it was perfect for the guy who wanted to ride across the country and make a scene doing it. It handled better than it looked, and the full dresser styling made it stand out in an era of clones. You didn't just ride a Sport Glide, you arrived on one. And for many Harley faithful, it was the start of a new chapter. From American muscle to German precision, here comes a bike that was nicknamed the Flying Brick. Number 17, 1984, BMW K100RS. When BMW unveiled the K100RS, it didn't just break the mold, it built a whole new one. Nicknamed the Flying Brick for its unique engine shape, the K100RS featured a fuel-injected, longitudinally mounted inline-four, making around 90 horsepower. It was BMW's leap into the future. With its aerodynamic fairing, low-slung tank, and digital touches, the K100RS looked like a machine from the next decade, and rode like it too. Smooth, stable, and eerily refined, it brought Autobahn-ready touring performance to the everyday rider. But what really stood out was its dependability. The shaft drive, fuel injection, and low-maintenance design made it a favorite among high-mileage tours and serious riders alike. For anyone chasing miles and precision over noise and flash, the K100RS was the blueprint. If you thought BMW was bold enough, wait till you meet Yamaha's street dragster. Number 18, 1985, Yamaha VMAX 1200. No list of iconic bikes would be complete without the VMAX. Introduced in 1985, this machine didn't just blur the lines between cruiser and sport bike, it obliterated them. With a 1,197 cubic centimeter V4 engine cranking out 145 horsepower, and Yamaha's infamous V-Boost system, it launched like a rocket and sounded like war. The VMAX wasn't about handling or subtlety, it was about power, pure and primal. You didn't ride it through curves, you aimed it. Riders who wanted a drag strip monster for the streets finally had their answer. It wasn't practical, and it sure wasn't polite, but it became a legend because it was unapologetically outrageous. The VMAX turned stoplights into launch pads and made sure everyone in the next zip code heard you leave. What set it apart wasn't just the numbers, it was the attitude. It was heavy, loud, and didn't care what you thought. It made no apologies for being built around brute force. For many riders, it wasn't just a bike, it was a personality. The kind that growled instead of purred. Power was great, but Suzuki wanted you to feel like a racer straight off the showroom floor. Number 19, 1985, Suzuki GSX R750. If you were around in the mid-80s and loved going fast, the GSX R750 was your dream machine. Lightweight, raw, and race-bred, it introduced the world to the Gixxer name, and everything changed. With a 749 cubic centimeter oil-cooled engine, pumping out 100 horsepower, and a chassis under 400 pounds. The power-to-weight ratio was jaw-dropping. It handled like a scalpel and screamed like a banshee. This wasn't just a sport bike, it was a race bike with headlights. Riders say the first ride felt like cheating. It didn't feel legal, and Suzuki priced it just low enough to be dangerous. Anyone with guts and a paycheck could grab one. For many, the GSX-R 750 was their first hit of real speed, and it hooked them for life. Next up, a lesser-known Italian that's all about character and corners. Number 20, 1986, Kagawa All'Azzurra 650. The Kagawa All'Azzurra 650 was a beautiful blend of Italian engineering and real-world practicality. Using a Ducati-derived 649 cubic centimeter L-twin engine, it produced around 55 horsepower. Modest, but with that signature desmodromic charm. It wasn't just about speed, it was about character, delivering smooth, linear power with a soundtrack that made every ride feel special. Cagiva gave it real performance chops too. The chassis featured a steel trellis frame, triple disc brakes, and Marzocchi suspension, all wrapped in sleek Italian bodywork. It handled like a dream, especially in tight corners, and offered an engaging ride without being intimidating. It never reached the popularity of its Ducati cousins, but it carved out a loyal following. The All'Azzurra was the thinking rider's exotic, unique, affordable, and full of personality. For riders who wanted something different than the big Japanese brands, this bike was a stylish and soulful option that stood out without trying too hard. Now we trade Italy's curves for Japan's ultimate beginner-to-winner machine. Number 21, 1987 Kawasaki EX500 Ninja 500R. The Kawasaki EX500, known to many as the Ninja 500R, was the ultimate gateway sport bike. With a 498 cubic centimeter parallel twin engine, making roughly 50 horsepower, it struck a perfect balance between performance and approachability. It was fast enough for highway rides and weekend twisties, but forgiving enough for new riders to grow with confidence. Its lightweight chassis, comfortable ergonomics, and low maintenance costs made it a favorite in motorcycle safety courses, commuter garages, and first bike lists across the country. But it wasn't just practical, it was fun. The X500 handled corners better than most gave it credit for, and its bulletproof reliability meant you could ride hard without constant trips to the shop. It wasn't flashy, but it didn't need to be. The Ninja 500R earned its respect through consistency. For many riders in the late 80s and 90s, it was their first love on two wheels, and it kept earning that love mile after mile. The EX500 taught you the basics, but the Hawk GT taught you soul. Number 22, 1988 Honda Hawk GT NCT 650. The Honda Hawk GT was ahead of its time. Launched in 1988, it featured a 647 cubic centimeter V-twin engine that made around 58 horsepower. Nothing wild, but perfectly tuned for everyday riding. What really set it apart, though, was the chassis. The aluminum twin spar frame and single-sided swing arm gave it a premium look and performance feel rarely seen in mid-sized bikes of the era. It was light, nimble, and confident in corners, offering the kind of ride that made you feel instantly connected to the road. It didn't need outrageous horsepower, just a good throttle hand in a twisty road. Commuters, beginners, and track day riders all found something to love in the Hawk. Despite modest sales, it developed a cult following that remains strong today. The Hawk GT was never about show, it was about the experience. In a world of speed chasers, it quietly became a rider's bike. Timeless, trusted, and treasured. You've seen sleek and street smart, now it's time to get dirty. Number 23, 1990, Honda Africa Twin XRV 750. The Africa Twin wasn't just a motorcycle, it was a passport to anywhere. Inspired by Honda's winning Paris-Dakar rally bikes, the XRV 750 looked like it had crossed continents straight out of the crate. And for many riders, it actually did. With a 742 cubic centimeter V-twin, long travel suspension, and a bulletproof build, this bike ate rough terrain for breakfast. But what made it special was its balance. It was just as happy on asphalt as it was on sand. It had a top speed around 110 miles per hour, but nobody cared. The point was, you could go anywhere. It wasn't flashy, it wasn't trendy, but it was loved. And for a generation of riders in the 90s, this was the machine that turned dirt trails into memories and weekend rides into adventures. After sand and trails, let's meet the European answer to the adventure call of the 90s. Number 24, 1991. Aprilia Pegaso 600. Before the dual sport and ADV craze exploded, Aprilia was already ahead of the curve with the Pegaso 600. This Italian-made single-cylinder adventure bike wasn't just stylish, it was versatile. Powered by a Rotax-built 562 cubic centimeter engine, the Pegaso delivered around 50 horsepower, with smooth torque across the rev range. It wasn't a fire breather, but it had more than enough grunt for dirt trails and urban commutes alike. What really made the Pegaso stand out was its refinement. It had electric start, a slick 5-speed gearbox, and surprisingly capable suspension. The ergonomics were comfortable for long days, and the upright seating position gave riders great visibility both on and off-road. Riders loved its nimbleness, its lightweight feel, and its distinctly European flair. It was a bike you could tour with during the week, then throw into the mud on the weekend. And while it never sold in huge numbers, those who rode one rarely let it go. For many, the Pegaso was their first taste of what an adventure bike could really be. Light, capable, and full of character. In a world full of bulky adventure tanks, the Pegaso proved you didn't need size to go anywhere. Just the spirit to do it. Still here? Then you're one of us. Number 25, 1992, Ducati 900 SSA, the Ducati 900 SS. The lines, the sound, the soul, this wasn't just a motorcycle, it was art with an attitude. Introduced in the early 90s, it captured everything people love about Italian bikes. Simplicity, power, and style that still turns heads. Powered by an air-cooled 904 cubic centimeter L-twin, the 900 SS made around 80 horsepower. Plenty for spirited rides, but manageable for real roads. What mattered wasn't just how fast it was how it felt. Every twist of the throttle, every corner, it made riding personal. Yes, it needed more maintenance. Yes, it wasn't as fast as the Japanese sport bikes. But ask anyone who owned one, and they'll say it was worth it. This bike didn't just ride, it seduced. From Ducati's soul to Triumph's comeback, the next bike is definitely the rebirth of a legend. Number 26, 1993 Triumph Trident 900. The 1993 Triumph Trident 900 marked Triumph's bold return after years of struggle. It wasn't just a bike, it was a statement that the British brand was back and meant business. Powered by an 885 cubic centimeter triple-cylinder engine, the Trident made about 98 horsepower. But more than the numbers, it delivered silky power, a soulful growl, and a riding experience that blended the best of both twins and fours. The design was clean and muscular, with a steel spine frame, upright riding position, and solid build quality that surprised many at the time. These weren't just machines. They were memories. First bikes, long trips, garage rituals, and decades later, they're still running or still missed. Drop a comment and tell us which of these legends you rode, or which one your dad or granddad never stopped talking about. And if this brought back memories, give it a like and subscribe for more vintage content, real rider stories, and legends that never die.